You know when you see a problem in your community, right? The impulse is always to think big, like we need a massive plan, a grand vision to fix everything at once. But what if that's not the best way? What if the most effective response, the most faithful one, is actually something way smaller, more thoughtful, and right in our own backyards? That's what we're going to dig into today.
So you can really think of it as two different paths. On one hand, you've got those big, sweeping, high-risk plans. They look impressive, for sure. But then, on the other hand, you have these more modest actions. They're local, they're lawful, and you know what? They're often way more effective. Let's break down exactly why that second path is usually the way to go.
All right, so what's the big idea behind all this? What's the secret sauce? It really all boils down to one simple virtue: humility. Now, I know in our culture that's all about going big and going fast. Humility can kind of sound like weakness, right? But what we're about to see is that in civic life, it's actually a massive source of strength. This totally reframes how we should think about humility, doesn't it? It's not about being timid or lacking confidence. No, it's a strategic choice. Civic humility is just being smart enough to say, hey, I don't know everything. Let's be careful. It's what pushes us to be effective instead of just being loud and disruptive. So at the end of the day, it's all about wisdom, not weakness.
And believe me, the practical benefits here are huge. Think about it. When you start small, you're showing respect for the people who actually live with the problem every single day. You're valuing their local knowledge. You also lower the risk of accidentally making things worse, which happens more than you think. And this is key. You build trust. You create a plan that you can actually tweak or even stop without the whole thing collapsing. It's like building shock absorbers into your project right from the get-go.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the why. It makes sense, right? But what about the how? I mean, how do you actually do this? How do you put it into practice? Well, it turns out there's a really straightforward three-part framework that can help guide you.
Here they are, the 3 keys to a faithful response: act locally, act lawfully, and act modestly. You can almost think of them as a set of checks and balances for your idea. They all work together to make sure your actions are grounded, responsible, and actually, helpful. Let's take a closer look at each one.
First up, proximity. Why is acting locally so important? Simple. It keeps responsibility right where it belongs, close to home. When you're right there, directly connected to a problem and the people it affects, you can't just ignore the consequences of what you're doing. It means your solutions are going to be guided by real people and real relationships, not just some abstract theory you cooked up. Okay, number 2 is authority. And this one is a critical gut check, seriously. A truly faithful action isn't about breaking the rules or cutting corners. So you have to ask yourself, do I actually have the authority to do this? And look, this isn't about bureaucracy or slowing things down. It's about protecting the community and, frankly, protecting your own integrity. It's about respecting the proper roles that hold everything together. And finally, the third key, motivation. This question really gets to the heart of the matter. Are you seeking control or are you offering care? Think about it. Modest actions, the ones that start small and have a limited scope, they naturally invite other people to join in. But those huge, grand plans, they can often feel like a takeover, and that's when you start getting resistance.
So now that we have that framework in mind, let's get even more practical. I'm talking about a checklist you can literally use to evaluate your own ideas. Think of it like a litmus test for any community plan you might be cooking up.
So, what are the signs of a really good, faithful plan? Well, they all kind of share some common DNA. First, the goal is super clear and limited, not some vague, giant mission. People get involved because they want to be there, not because you're pressuring them. These plans also respect the good work that other people are already doing. And this one is so important. They have a defined endpoint. That way, a temporary fix doesn't accidentally become a permanent problem. And here's maybe the simplest, most powerful test of all. If you can't explain your plan simply, that's a massive red flag. It probably means it's too complicated, too big, and way too likely to fail. Remember, simplicity isn't just about being neat, it's a sign of a really well-thought-out, effective plan.
Now, on the flip side, here are the warning signs, the things to avoid. If your project needs publicity just to survive, that's a red flag. If you have to basically twist people's arms to get them to participate, something's off. You also got to watch out for scope creep, when the project keeps getting bigger and bigger. And maybe the biggest one of all, make sure you're not trying to solve a problem that nobody actually asked you to solve in the first place.
When you strip everything else away, it all boils down to this one central conflict. And this quote just says it all.
When ego grows, faithfulness shrinks. The second a project becomes more about you, about your reputation or getting credit, it's the exact moment it stops being about genuinely serving other people.
So let's end with this powerful thought. We live in a world that is always shouting for big, grand gestures, right? But it's so often the quiet, the careful, the humble actions that end up carrying the most weight. Real, strong communities aren't built overnight with some dramatic, sweeping plan. They're built on a foundation of countless small, consistent, and faithful actions. And that really leaves just one question for all of us. What's the small, faithful action you can take today?